Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be doing this pretty exciting. We're going to be doing a presentation, our first public presentation on two new products. One I think is going to be quite consequential in the long run, and in the short run, we've built a utility that we think is going to make transitioning to Act Premium Cloud a lot easier. In fact, we know it will, and I think you will agree after this demo. So we're going to kick things off with the Keystroke Contact Manager, which I've got displayed on our homepage. If you want to read a little bit more about it after this is over, you can click on KQC Tools, scroll down to Customer Tools, and then click on Keystroke Contact Manager. Okay, but let's just handle a couple of housekeeping things up front. As indicated, this event is being recorded. Please submit your questions into chat, and I would ask, and looking that everyone here has themselves muted, thank you very much. This is being recorded, and we want to obviously avoid any background noises or distractions. So let's kick things off with the Keystroke Contact Manager. What is it? Why did we build it? So Keystroke Contact Manager is much like handheld contact for the desktop. Okay, it cannot operate without Act. It's not meant to be a freestanding, contact manager. Okay, it's just a different way of accessing your Act data. Okay, it syncs with Act. Okay, through either a hosted database or Act Premium Cloud, and it sends and receives all the data through the API. Act users have to be either standard user in terms of security permission or higher, and have web API permission. So if you end up testing this out in the next few weeks or months, make sure that the users that you have in mind for this have those minimum security rules, okay, or permissions. Before I show the program, I want to just stress that that this isn't like handheld contact. This is built with handheld contact in mind, okay? And let me explain that. When I took over handheld contact back in 2017, one of the biggest expenses we had was maintaining two separate code bases, one for Android, one for iOS, and maintaining, two separate developers for this, because very few people obviously are proficient in both. So this was very, very costly. Even when you have one developer, keeping two code bases is very, very difficult, okay, and costly. But when you have two developers, it becomes even more so, because there's, very, very difficult to keep the experience uniform across the different platforms. So what we've done is we've developed the Keystroke Contact Manager with handheld contact in mind, so that it is built on a code base called Maui, okay? Most of you guys probably haven't heard of it outside of the Hawaiian Islands. The Maui is a platform agnostic code base that can develop for PCs, Macs, iOS, and Android, okay? So we have developed this. I'm just going to mute someone here. We've developed this so that we can eventually build one code base and build separate wrappers for each of the platforms. Okay, so this will create much more of a consistent and uniform experience, will reduce the cost dramatically, and will be able to affect changes and new features across all platforms much more quickly. But since we already have a couple of products in the field with iOS and Android, our first priority was to kind of lay the groundwork for Windows and build out the Windows product, and we're calling that Keystroke Contact Manager. Before I begin the demo, I want to explain what it is. Why are we building another Windows client, okay, for Act? Well, ABC subscribers can choose to deploy KCM instead of Act and save $120 per user, because right now Act Premium Cloud costs $360, and every activation of the Windows client costs $120. If we can build a handheld or a Windows client that reduces the need for them to subscribe to the desktop sync, then they can end up with the best of both. They can have a great web experience and they can have a great offline experience without the extra expense. Okay, IT teams can also deploy it instead of Act due to its smaller footprint. Okay, there's no major SQL installations or permission implications. And we will be implementing add-ons for this. So we'll be implementing things like Act for Outlook, Dash, Mail Manager, and other things over time. The other thing to keep in mind is that there are certain feature gaps between web and Windows currently. So you can kind of scroll down. This is a blog that we've got, and this is the list of feature gaps that are currently between the web and the Windows client. Those feature gaps, and this isn't a shot at Act, it's a very hard to bridge all of those gaps, across the two platforms. We know that because we developed the custom tables for Act, and closing the gap between the Windows and the web experience is very difficult. So, what we can do now is we can center around some of the pain points that customers have, some of the feature gaps with the web experience, and build them into, into the KCM, as we call it, Keystroke Contact Manager. And I'm going to show you how some of those work, okay? And it will be within our control. We can bring them to market a lot faster, and customers can, we can respond to customer demands very quickly, okay? This will be licensed by activation, okay? There isn't going to be a cost associated with this. This is going to be free for our customers and for anyone that purchases Orange Care. Now, so we are going to be expanding our Orange Care program so that other resellers can sell Orange Care and therefore get the entitlement for Keystroke Contact Manager through that, okay? Why are we doing this? Why are we linking what seemingly is unrelated, the support plans, to KCM? Well, practically speaking, we don't want to really give away a product that may incur support requirements for the customers, that we have no revenue associated with. So what we're doing is we're saying, look, for the people that we think are getting the best customer experience, the best Act experience through getting our support plans, we're going to also provide this, and provide it free of charge. Okay, that way, if there is any issues, we've got the ability to reach out and support them. Okay, so with that introduction, let's actually show you what the program looks like. Bring it over here. Okay, so this is the Keystroke Contact Manager. This is the screen that you will open to. If you've used handheld contact before, some of these things are going to seem familiar. You're going to have today's activities on the opening dashboard. This is the home screen, this month's opportunities. You're going to have the basic statistics, the how many contacts, how many tasks, how many opportunities. Now, some of these are obviously showing for all users, and it's going to show you the last sync. Okay, good afternoon, Ken, everything else. Okay, so that's the main homepage. We're going to go over to contacts. Okay, now a couple of things you're going to notice right off the bat, okay, is that this is a similar type list view that you guys are familiar with, okay, but we've got several search tools for this. Now, the one thing that's consistent with handheld contact is when you click into a particular contact, you're seeing it in read-only mode. In Act, when you go into a contact record, you immediately have the ability to edit it. Well, our handheld contact has never been like that, so we want to have people have that extra click, okay, so they can kind of fearlessly go through contacts without risk of changing data. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is the searching options. So right over here, we have what we call the keyword search, but it is a universal search, to put it in Act parlance. So universal search searches everything. It searches notes, it searches histories, it searches all, tasks, opportunities, everything. So if I typed in, like the other day, I typed in, my own name, okay, and I got an enormous amount of hits. Not that I'm in the database more than once, but because I'm listed as record manager on so many of the contacts, so I had a disproportionate number of responses. However, if I type it in up here, then it's going to search all of the primary contacts, and anything that I type in, okay, and primary fields, I should say, anything that I type in here, okay, and then click on OK, and it does a lookup, it will set here as a kind of a search filter. So if I was to put it in Toronto, okay, all of a sudden you see that I've got the filter applied here, and then I can clear that, and it will show the list again. What I also have, okay, is the ability to filter. Now this is something that we've wanted in ACT for a long time. You'll notice that all the column headers, if you click on them, you're going to be able to sort, okay? So if I want to sort here, I can do so. If I want to sort, click it again. It actually has 3 sort states. It's got ascending, descending, and then the last one is clearing the sort, okay? But I also have a filter. So if I want to click on here, and I want to say is equal to Toronto, and then filter, I'm immediately going to get that. And then I can do searches within that. I can have a filter by all, any number of these columns. So I can create a narrowing lookup just by doing that, okay? So that's the universal search. Here's the contact search, kind of, within these columns, it's searching only fields. And then you've got the column filters, okay? But there's actually another way. So what you can do is if you wanted to build a list, a cherry-picked list, you can actually click on this little thing, checkbox, and now I'll clear my selections here. If I wanted to say, okay, let's pick this person, this person, this person, and then I wanted to create a different search, okay? And I said, let's say I want to search for Quigley's. And I'm just going to click on here. Now, you'll notice that I have 3 here, but you see this is in blue here because I still have this filtered by Toronto. If I reset this, then I get the rest of the Quigleys, okay? Now, every single time that I've selected someone, I'm creating a little selection here. So I can go through and, edit and compile this list of people, okay? And then once I've got my list of people that I want to deal with, then I've got some options here. Now, one of the things that I mentioned the feature gaps between web and Windows. One of the big feature gaps is batch editing, okay? So, whether you're editing the access or deleting a bunch of contacts or editing the access permissions, clearing a bunch of activities, all these kinds of things, there is limited batch edit functionality within the web experience. This was something that we knew that we immediately had to support if we were going to be doing this. So what we've done is we create this little ability to compile a list, and then you click on actions, and you've got a bunch of options here. Schedule an activity for everyone on the list. Add this to your favorites. I'll get into that later. Add this to a group. Edit the contact access. So if I want to change the contact access for a bunch of contacts that are on this selection, I can do that. That's absolutely not supported in ACT for Windows, okay? Write email. Now the write email with the base product is pretty standard, okay? If you've ever written an email with handheld contact, it pops up a little dialog box. You put in the subject, you put in the email, you send it out, and it basically sends out, kind of like a delivery to all of them, but not really a merge. This is the same kind of thing. You click on here, okay? You're going to type this in. You're going to type the body of the email, okay? And when you click on continue, it's going to load that email into Outlook, okay, or whatever your default email client is. But it will take this window here and write that to the history of all the people that are being received here. So at that point, we don't really need, Outlook integration because the history is being written. Okay, it's going to, because it's in the Windows environment, it's going to pass it on to the mail client, much like Android and iOS does on their mobile platforms. Okay, now we are going to build in additional Outlook functionality. Okay, as I said, we're going to build a marketplace for this, but this is something that we can provide right away. So if you're sending out quick messages, you can do so and know that you're leaving that audit trail and everything's being recorded to history. Okay. Okay, so we've got that. Now just to kind of show you some of the other things. So here is again the activity or all the lists. So you can schedule an activity for everyone at once, add the favorites. As I said, the favorites are over here. These are people that you frequently access okay, we introduced favorites into handheld contact, and we realized, much like you've got your call list on your mobile devices, we figured there's the same kind of people, whether they're regular customers, friends, employees, coworkers, whichever. You're going to want to create a list that you can easily access and maybe even quickly communicate with in several different ways. Okay, so got that. Add to group. Again, being able to add to group very quickly is something that that people wanted in APFW. And a contact access flat out unavailable. If you wanted to say, I'm going to change all these people to private within the APFW environment, sorry, Act Premium for Web environment, you would have to go in and edit everyone individually. This you can do en masse. Right email I showed you. Delete, believe it or not, deleting a bunch of contacts actually is a fairly unintuitive process when you're deleting contacts. This allows you to do it very straightforward. Okay, so let's go back to that. Okay, now we're not always going to be working in list mode. Okay, let me just bring up my record here. We are going to, let me just also, sorry, let me clear this. And let's just go to quickly here. Trying to avoid showing anyone's information other than my own. Okay, so here is the detail view, okay, of my information. Okay, so you can see here, we've got all the other information here. We've got the business address, we've got the home address, we can click on any one of these things like you can on Act. You can't edit it, but you can trigger it, okay? And obviously you can see all of these numbers. If you've got soft phone connectivity on your computer, then this can be configured to trigger that. Email is obviously straightforward. This will trigger mapping functionality, whichever. Okay, so we've built in, and you can even see here the website is a trigger to being able to launch a browser. So there's a fair number of active fields in here, and you'll notice that this is laid out in a fairly deliberate way. This is a row with 3 columns. This is a row with 2 columns. This is a row with 1 column. So this has been designed, as I said, this is a platform that is going to work across, sorry, a program that's going to work across multiple platforms. So in order to be mobile responsive, you've got to have a layout that can stack, okay? Act has a pixel based layout, okay? It doesn't stack, okay? It just will shrink. So this will enable you to stack it on, so it will work in a small form factor on a mobile platform. And so we've designed it this way. Now, if you wanted to edit the layout, we've got a fairly intuitive tool here. Okay. Now, when you're looking at it, it's like, okay, that's a lot of numbers. Maybe that's not super intuitive, but let me explain to you, in very, very quick terms, how this all works. So if you want to create a category, you click on here, and that will create something like with the business address, home address, so on and so forth. Okay. If you want, and then all the fields here are what's available to be added to the layout. Just like Act, you can't add the same field more than once. But you see these numbers here, 4, 4, 8, 4. What do all these mean? In most content management systems on websites, generally they are organized in 12 columns, okay? I'm not going to get into the history of it. It just is what it is. So that if you have a 6, that's meant to represent half that column space, okay? Because 2 6s are 12, okay? So you can see 6 and 6 means that this particular column has been divided into 2. If you see down here, this is running the full width here, okay? And you can even see here that the number 4 is representing that it is 1/3 of the full width. Sorry, I know this isn't super exciting, but I just kind of wanted to explain how this works. So this case, we've got 1 column. So you can see 4, 4, and 4 adding up to 12. So if you were to add something, okay, you can actually organize it, drop a field in here, okay, and you can say, well, I only want it to be 3, okay, and it will shorten it up, okay? And so you can customize the view however you want, click on save, I've already saved it. You get this little notice saying that you're saving it. You also have the option to save it and share it with other users that are on your team, okay? Well, this isn't something that you're gonna share across a network. You're going to constantly be syncing this, and you can share the layout as part of that process, okay? Now, so you'll see a couple of things here. Very familiar actions going across the top. Call, obviously this isn't meant to trigger a call, it's meant to schedule a call. Schedule a meeting, schedule a to-do, schedule an opportunity, note, history, all the same kind of functionalities that you're used to. Now, when you get to email, then you're gonna see that email box that we showed you earlier. But quote is a little different because that is not something that is in ACT. So what we've done is we have integrated, obviously as the maker of Linktivity, we have integrated the link to quotes functionality right in here. So you can click on this, okay, and it's going to trigger new quote for Ken Quigley. And now I don't have to populate it. Ken Quigley's automatically being brought in. The rules that we set up was that it looks for certain conditions within the contact, so it knows to quote me in CAD, it knows to apply the Ontario sales tax, and now I can just start the quote, okay? So, and then as soon as I save it, then an opportunity will be added, but this isn't about the Linktivity, so I just wanted to explain that. We're going to build in form functionalities. We're going to build in survey functionalities so that you will be able to click on something, select the survey, and send it out, and it will have that contacts information pre-populated, so it will generate a link, okay, that they click on and they can immediately complete it, okay? So here's all the information. As you can see, you can click on it. It's all in read-only mode. So if I want to edit it, I've got the ability to do it with one click, just like handheld contact, okay? So I can go through, I can make the changes, and soon as I save, okay, then it can either write it immediately, okay, sync it on schedule or sync it on demand, okay? And it's all gonna be through the API. And just to kind of show you a little bit about the settings, okay? So we've got some, I'm not gonna go through all of these things, but it's talking about, days for past syncing and things like that. Download opportunities, download only open opportunities, download them for my records, things like that. During the setup, when you first get this is about a 30-second download, if that, maybe 10, okay? You're gonna launch it, it's gonna ask you for which group you're gonna wanna sync to, just like Handheld Contact API, and then it's gonna ask you to log in, okay? If you don't have valid ACT credentials, it's going to fail. If you don't have web API permissions, it's going to fail. It's going to prompt you for the opportunities, and then it's going to do a download all. And literally, people can go from having it uninstalled to installed and populated in data with all the data within 10-15 minutes. Okay, now I say 10-15 minutes, it could be less, it could be more, because we don't know how much data is being downloaded. But when I do it from scratch, I've got almost 30,000 contacts. It's going to take 10-15 minutes for me. Okay, so we'll go back to contacts. Okay, so that's the contact list. We've got customized columns. Okay, we've got add a contact there, we've got refresh, we've got save, and then with the configure where you can set the different lists. So I want to see, favorites, user status, things like that. Okay, now if I go to calendar, the calendar the calendar is pretty cool. We're gonna continue to add functionality to it. Right now, all the items in orange, we're gonna add some color coding to that. But you immediately get the day calendar, 3-day calendar. Now you'll notice here that this is displaying all down the side, similar to handheld contact, okay? Work week, showing everything that's in view, okay? Obviously all the timeless activities, just like ACT, are gonna show up at the top, okay? And you could see some of the default filters right away. Show only those for Ken Quigley, and show, cleared status is not cleared. I don't wanna see things that are cleared, okay? And then, you can, click on create new, create filters, whichever, and That's it with the calendar. Okay, so then you got weeks. Okay, let's go to work week. And then we've got the monthly view. Okay, and this is using a similar type. Well, it's actually using almost identical because it's made by the same code manufacturer, Telerik, for the calendar controls that ACT uses. So if it seems familiar, you know, there's good reason for it. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's go to the task lists. Task lists are, you know, pretty similar, but let me show you something that you can't do. If you click on the little checkbox, one of the frustrations people have reported with the APFW or Act Premium Cloud is being able to clear multiple activities. Okay, so now you can select a whole bunch of activities, click on actions, and now either delete, add to list, or clear. Okay, I'm not going to clear them because this is a production database, but if I was to clear, it would prompt me for an outcome, and then it would record it all to history and then be synced back to ACT. Okay, so suddenly that big pain point for people not being able to you know, clear a bunch of activities, okay, or reschedule things like that is no longer an issue. Okay, so let's go here. Christopher Work asked, can you color code tasks? We will be supporting color coding tasks. This is something that, because we've actually built add-ons to do exactly that, and we'll be building that into the preferences. Our expected release date is next week, March 4th or 5th. It likely will not be in it at that point, but this is going to be a constantly evolving program. Okay, so do expect to see that, you know, probably sometime in March. Okay, but good question. That's something that I personally requested. Okay, as much as I love orange, I don't want to see everything in orange. Okay, the next thing is we've got calendar types. We've 5. We've covered that. Let's talk about opportunities. Okay. Now you'll notice that the column filters are right across all the different sections. So anything like if I suddenly want to say, okay, I only want to see, you know, mine, boom, I can do that. I only want to see ones in the quotation stage, I can do that, okay? Plus, let's say that I clear this, reset, and let's say I want to group them. I now have all of Fajar's, all of Jason's, all of Gene's, all in different sections, okay? And that really breaks it down nicely. If you're working with a sales team, you can immediately go through and see their pipeline in a very intuitive way, okay? And you still have the filtering options there, okay? And then if you wanted to go through here and select them all, okay, you've got different options available for those. And they select over here, click on actions, and you can delete and add to list. Okay, and we're going to be building this out. We'll have multiple updates and things like that. Sometimes the doing batch edits and opportunities gets a little tricky outside of status, just because there's, you know, each of them can have different processes and different stages. But we'll be building in functionality that allows you to update a bunch of them at once. Okay. So again, the focus on batch functionality. And then, so we've got opportunities. We're going to be building in summaries and calculations and all of this. But take a look at the filter here. So if I slide this on over and I click on, I mean, I can click on this and select what probability I want, but I can actually click on this and say is greater than or equal to 1,000. Okay, and now I'm immediately seeing only those. Okay, so the filtering is pretty powerful and especially relevant when you're dealing with transactional lists like this that have numeric values. Okay, groups. This is something that doesn't exist in Handheld Contact, okay, but something that doesn't exist in this. So you can see all the groups. You can add people to groups because you've got access to them. Okay, keep in mind, the one thing that you that is going to be different about ACT versus Handheld Contact is that when you set up Handheld Contact, okay, or in this case, Keystroke Contact Manager, you are determining which group you're going to be downloading. So which group of contacts you're going to be downloading. So with this list of groups that you see here, these will only be populated with the contacts that you've downloaded. They're not going to include all the contacts in your database because that's not part of your download set, okay? Now let's take a look at the sync status, okay? So up here, you've got download all data, download all activities, things like that. I can trigger the sync right now, okay? But also, I think it's probably already started, okay? What under about, okay? I'm not going to initiate a sync because it could take, 5 minutes, and that's pretty bad television, okay? But if you click on about, you can have a confirmation of your connection status, request support, save logs, send them in to us. But this will also allow you to update your version instantly. Okay, when I say instantly, maybe I should be a little bit careful, but not that far off. So you click on this, it will download it in maybe 15 seconds. You click on keep, you click on load, you'll be prompted to update, and you should have a new version in probably about 30 seconds. Okay, so pretty fast. Okay, and I'm about halfway through my time, so I want to, make sure that I don't take up too much time with this, and I've got to leave some room for the others. But let me just see if there's any questions that I can answer. Okay, will the sort by contact always be by first name? Good question. Actually, I don't know the answer to that, but I am sure that will allow for some options in that. We're the developers, so we can make it work any way we want. Okay, any way to change that to a percent to make it more user-friendly? Not sure, sorry, Michael, I'm not sure what you're referring to on that. Christopher, I answered your questions on the color coding. On the user's desktop, how is this program updated? Through the syncing, okay, plus on schedule. Color code based on due date. Well, that's an interesting concept. I haven't had that question before. Okay, can we edit the font and size of this layout? I'm going to repeat myself from something I said to the developers earlier this morning. There is no end zone with this product. There's no going to be a point where we stick our flag in the ground and say we're done. This is going to be constantly evolving. So I love these suggestions, but we've got to have a point where we start. So we're aiming next week. And some of these requests may not be at time of initial launch, but we are very, very committed to this product. Okay, we obviously feel that it fits within the ACT ecosystem. Okay, it can save our customers money. And we want our customers to enjoy what we think is the best ACT experience with ACT Premium Cloud and have the opportunity to reduce their costs. If you can be spending $360 on software, okay, and only have Orange Care on top of that, which includes all kinds of benefits, and get this for free, we think that's the best ACT experience and the most economical. But to answer your question, some of these features will not be available at launch, but keep them coming because we can add them in really quickly. Will there be a French version? Oh, Sylvia and Fred, right back to back. I can't believe that this wasn't asked more than once. Yes, there will be a French version. We may even make a Dutch version. Okay, I think Peter Pennings has promised to get me drunk, so we'll probably get a Dutch version out there, but there absolutely will be a French version. Anyone that's ever been to any of our websites is well aware of our commitment to the translations, and we'll definitely continue that with this product. Okay. Yes, and we. Okay, so translations in live action here. Okay, if there's no other questions, let me just immediately move this on over. Now I want to, next I want to go into the ACT provisioning unit. Okay, let me just tell you, I'm not a Simpsons fan, so I didn't understand the joke when I would call it Apu, and people would send me all these memes of that character in Simpsons. Doesn't mean anything to me. But Apu stands for ACT Provisioning Unit or Utility. And here is a blog that you can go to learn all about it after this demo, but we'll cover this. Again, much like KCM, the Keystroke Contact Manager, this utility is meant to support people migrating to the cloud because we are convinced that that's the best ACT experience and it's the best ACT value. Okay, so Christopher, how does this benefit those that are working with remote databases? I'll tell you how it benefits, Christopher. That's a good question. Right now, if you subscribe to Act Premium Cloud, okay, you can, let's say there's 10 users, okay, 10 users, they all get web access. However, you may want to have remote desktop users, like you described, have the desktop sync client, okay? Those are subscribed to, okay, for $120 a year or $10 a month on an activation basis, okay? Historically, that's been on a user basis, and you had to buy them for all users, even if they weren't using them, okay? So as of Valentine's Day, just last week, they switched it to an activation base, and you can order a custom quantity of desktop syncs. Here's the thing. A lot of desktop users, myself included, have computers, have laptops, have home computers where they may have, 1, 2, 3 installations of ACT, each of them with their different RDBs, okay? Well, with the new model, that one user would be spending $360, okay? What we're suggesting is that if that person needs a Windows client, get one, and then on the other computers, you can use the Keystroke Contact Manager or use Act for Web, okay, so that they've got one production version of Act that they can have, their desktop add-ons worked with, whichever, any kind of SDK add-ons, and then they can use either Web Access or KCM for their other workstations. So it does affect them in some cases, but if you've got a user with one remote database and one computer, probably not a big impact. Okay, but each and every time you're renewing, you may want to determine whether or not that person's needs can be met with KCM, in which case you just saved $120 a year. Okay, so that's how it impacts them. Thanks for that question. Okay, back to APU. I promise not to call it APU. Here, as you can see, this little GIF that's showing you the different sections. This is APU, okay? So what is it? APU is a utility, as you say, Act Provisioning Utility here, you can see the name, that allows you to prepare your database for moving to Act Premium Cloud. Now, we deal with all kinds of Act users, and you'd be amazed at the amount of people when we're talking to them about moving to the cloud, and they say, and we tell them, well, you get 6 gigs for free, and by the way, that is going to be increasing significantly. Stay tuned on that. But you get 6 gigs for free right away, and then every 4 gigs after that, you've got to pay, $60. Well, people don't even know how to quantify that because they don't know where to. They think their database, their ADF is what they're paying for, and not the attachments. And if they understand its attachments, they don't know where to find them. So what we did is we built this utility that immediately tells them how big their database is. Okay, so you click on the little ellipses, you browse to your database. It could be local, it could be network. Okay, then you put in your login, your password, and you click on Analyze Data. And it's immediately going to bring up all of these stats. Now, before I go any further, let me just say that this utility does not need to be installed. You download it, okay, and you run it, and it pops up immediately without any installation. So this should not require any extra permissions or admins or anything like that. This will just pop up, okay? So you can see here, here's the database size, here's the log files, here's the orphaned attachments. I'll get into that in a bit. Orphan size, 0. File count, it's going to count them all, and the total file space, 32 gigs, 32.65 gigabytes. So that's a lot more than 6, okay? So here it breaks down. It says the first 6 gigabytes are free. Overages are roughly 26, just 27 gigs, just shy of 27 gigs. What is my overage cost going to be? $360 with the 25% quantity discount, okay? So I've got everything right off the bat, okay? I know what my status quo is, I know what my worst case scenario is, and I've got everything. So I'm going to click on File Info, okay? It's going to give me a more detailed forensic breakdown of all the different storage within the database. But now it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to pay $360. Okay, so let's look at some of the tools that are available. I'm going to click on Tools. Okay, now we're going to come back to this top part. Okay, but the first part is orphaned attachments. Now, what are orphaned attachments? If you delete a contact or you delete an opportunity, and there was attachments associated with those entities, and you delete them, sometimes the entity gets deleted, but it will leave the attachments behind. So those are then free floating attachments that are not linked to your database in any way. Well, why is it important to deal with that now and not later? Well, once you upload the database to Active Premium Cloud, you can't connect to those orphan attachments anymore because they're not part of the database. You can't connect to it through the cloud to something that, according to the database, doesn't exist, okay? But on a local copy, you can see the dead weight, okay? So what we've done is we've developed this utility to go into your database and identify, all the orphan attachments, and then either delete them, permanently delete files, or move them to a folder on your computer outside of your database, okay? Now, you're probably thinking, well, how much can that save? Well, in our production database, we had 15 gigs of attachments and 5 gigs were orphans, okay? We've been doing this for a long time and we just had never scanned for them, so we were actually quite surprised that we paired off a third. So that was 5 gigs, okay, that we immediately didn't have to pay storage on. More importantly, we're not wasting time and energy including them in RDBs or backups or anything else like that. We cleaned it and we only had attachments that were actually linked to entities in the database, okay? Now, so I'm not gonna run this because I've already run this, and that's why you saw earlier in the stats, there is 0, okay? So that obviously worked. We recommend moving, not deleting, okay? Because you get a chance to actually look at them and maybe you wanna keep them for something else, but they have no database consequence. But the convert shortcuts was something that we actually had a request for, and I was really surprised we didn't think of this before, but over time, and time is always an issue, all ACT users, they come to us and they're always happy to tell us how long they've been using it, and that's great, and we're glad we sell and support a product with such loyalty. But over time, people don't travel light, okay? They build up attachments and it becomes quite a hefty database. So sometimes people will do things like, instead of adding an attachment to the database, they will add it as a shortcut to some kind of network resource. Okay, so what that means is, and I can actually show you here. Okay, let me look up my contact. And I'm going to, okay, if I go to here, I can click on Add, Shortcut to File, and I can add, let's say, an image. Okay, it's giving me a message that we don't sync attachments, but that's fine. Okay, and now, okay, let's go to, where is this? Let's go to demodify. Okay, you see this here? It says the link file at the end. Okay, this means that the file is not actually in the database, it's just accessible through the database, okay? However, if you've got a lot of them and you wanna move to Active Premium Cloud, when you back up your database and send your database to the cloud, and people try to access that database through the cloud, all of your network shortcuts are gonna be gone. Okay, so this is one of those cases where you need to kind of assemble all of your attachments together before uploading, okay, and then you can manage the space afterwards. So what we did is we built the utility so that you can convert, okay, these network shortcuts, bring them from wherever they are on their network locations, and bring them right back into the database so that they can be backed up and uploaded and then accessible through the web, okay? Now, there are going to be some cases where it's not going to be accessible, okay? Sylvia's on this call, so I'm going to pick on her a little bit. She had an attachment that was linking to her personal My Documents folder, Okay, I'm sure she didn't mean to, doesn't matter. But when I went to recover that, obviously I don't have access to, the My Documents folder on her computer, so that was a dead link, and it reported back, gave me the location, and then I can say, hey, Sylvia, use this to bring it into the database. So it may take a couple of efforts, depending on where it is, but you get an instant report of what was converted and what wasn't. And what I did the other day was I was using, you'll notice that this database here is the ACES demo, and this is ACES, so I can't show you this live. But what I did was I ran the utility, added it to one contact, and you literally saw the LNK file turn into a JPEG, okay, because it brought the file back in, okay? So we've covered the tools here, orphan attachments, backups. You're gonna see backups many places, okay? When you are making these kinds of changes to the database, we prompt you consistently, backup, backup, backup. Even before the orphan attachments, just do a backup so you've got a snapshot of where you were before you started, okay? And I'm gonna come back to SSO, but here is database cleanup. If you've ever gone into into the admin tools and you said remove all data, you see things like remove notes older than X number of days, histories older than X number of days, cleared activities older than blah, 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 document tabs, and then campaign results, okay? What you don't see is things like opportunities. What you don't see is date ranges, okay? You don't see a whole lot of flexibility. So what we've done is we've built this right within the this utility. Now, if you hadn't guessed this, I don't need Act Open, okay? All I have to do is connect to it, connect to the database, and I can do this outside of Act, okay? And just within this utility. So I can click on Remove All Data, and I can say, okay, I want activities, histories, notes, opportunities, and I could say Analyze, okay? Now I've already wiped this out, okay? Actually, no, I haven't. So see here, it's saying finish getting opportunity data. Yes, so I have wiped it out. Let me go to histories. Be careful, this might take a little bit longer. Okay, getting history data. Okay, so now I can immediately see all the histories I've got in 2020, 2021, and I can either say use the same method, okay, remove by number of days, or I can set a range, start from this year to that year, based on the information that I've got up here, okay? I could very clearly see what's worth purging and what isn't, and then that way you can do all your cleaning up, streamlining before you send it to Act, okay? That's why I say keep a backup copy, so that you've got that one reference point. But for people that want to move forward into a production environment, they may not need 20 years of documents and 20 years, at least on the cloud, okay? Least of all when they're paying for it. So then you've got the re-index database. Obviously, anytime that you clear out a lot of data, you want to re-index, make sure that it's running efficiently. Okay, also that's going to reduce the size of your ALF file, your log file, which again is going to be the size of something that you pay for. Okay, the last step, and this is something that causes people the most grief, to understand how it works, let's just go to the Act login, my.act.com, okay? Now, you'll immediately see this is the same login for everyone. I'm putting in my email and my password. And when I click in login, that single sign-on is going to find my database, find my user account, and load it appropriately, okay? Previously, you had to have your own dedicated database link, and then you would click on that, and that would say log into such and such database. This is using much more advanced single sign-on technology, but because of that, we can't put in John Smith. We can't put in Ken Quigley. We can't put in Michael Cadlib. We've got to have uniques. And obviously the best way of doing that is using the unique email, okay, that people register with. But most people, when I say most, I mean literally all that are using Act, log in with their regular names, Ken Quigley or Ken or whichever, okay? So we recognize that, and we know that it's a fairly time-consuming process to change them all in preparation for single sign-on. So what we do is we say convert to SSO. Now I've already done this database. Previously, the display names also were the login names, okay? But the second we click on this, we click on save, and everyone's login name will become an email, okay? You click on save, all of that's done. The database provisioning process is instantly simplified, and people are able to skip across a couple of steps in the provisioning process. Okay. Is there a way to archive data allowing to be accessed later? Again, this is something that I would say keep a local copy of, okay? And this is why we also quote one desktop sync client with all of our APC quotes, because we think there's value, at least $10 a month worth anyway, to have that one reference point for your old historical data. So if you go through and you clear out a bunch of histories, a bunch of documents and that, you can have an offline reference point of where it was. So there isn't a way of archiving data, okay, that keeps it from view, okay, but doesn't necessarily save space. There are utilities for the desktop client, but nothing I'm aware of that works in web. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Okay, and the last piece, okay, we've talked about, determining the size. We've talked about preparing it, reducing the size here, preparing it for your uploads to Act Premium Cloud, and the table usage, removing all data. The last thing is, let's say you've done all of this, and like me, you still got a lot of fat to trim. Okay, in this case, I'm still paying $360. Then what we have is a utility called Attachments for Act. This is a separate program. Okay, it's not part of APU, we're just surfacing it so people are aware of it. That one of two ways. One, if you have a desktop client, okay, our customers, okay, with Orange Care will get the Attachments for Act for 2 weeks free of charge. And what that will do is that will allow them to take all of their database attachments and push them up to a public storage service called Backblaze. Now, Backblaze, you can get like at backblaze.com, you can look it up. I think it's like $70 a year, you get a terabyte of data. Okay, so you're not paying $60 for 4 gigs, you're paying $70 for like a terabyte. You can use it for whatever you like, but you can move all of your attachments, 10, 20, 30, 50 gigs or more up to there. And what it will do, this utility, is it will convert all of those attachments into those shortcuts that I showed you before, okay? And then when you upload it and people click on it, it's going to not access it from the Act storage, it's going to access it from Backblaze. Okay, then you know that your total storage overages are never going to exceed $70 because there's no earthly way you're ever going to exceed 1 terabyte of data. We've found one with half a terabyte, but never anyone close to a full terabyte. Okay, so that is the final piece. This is and then what we do is we say you can run it for 2 weeks, and then people will just let it run around the clock. And then every time that you sync your desktop sync, it removes it from the server and it updates all the attachments on the Act Premium Cloud server with the links. And then after a couple of weeks, they're all updated. Your storage is reduced down to virtually nothing outside of the database files. And now you're within the in most cases within the free range. And I think certainly for most people that once they increase the storage allotment, that virtually everyone is going to be able to have minimal to zero overage costs. Okay, so Eric has asked, if doing the SSO email changes en masse, will new passwords? Yes, you will still have to go through the password reset, but that's a fair bit easier than having to do both. Okay, because now all of them are being converted for you and the password reset. But I have been thinking about this, and what we're going to probably try to do is simplify that with Act. So if we do all the conversions, if they can use their existing passwords. I think because it's on the web, The only concern that they're going to have is whether or not it meets password complexity requirements, because obviously, Eric, I don't need to tell you, a ton of people don't even use passwords, which obviously isn't going to be supported in the web. Okay, so I think they may want to hold on to that process, but you know, I intend to ask them and see what kind of give we can get. Okay, and that's it. We're just under an hour. We've covered, I think, a fair bit. If there is any questions that I haven't covered or you think of later, please email me, ken@kqc.ca. Okay, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. But I hope this is beneficial. The Keystroke Contact Manager is obviously a very, very big investment for us. The ACT provisioning utility is something that, you know, we're going to be providing. We're just going to build it out. We're probably going to be sharing it with our peers sometime late spring. Okay. What's the price of the APU, Fred? For you, nothing. Okay. So we'll pass that on to you. And don't ask me if it's going to be translated in French. It's a free utility. Okay. So your English is pretty good. Any other questions? That's good in English. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. I will be recording this or ripping this so that it's sending you around a video link afterwards, so you can reference this and share this with others. So thank you very much. And if you're in the ACC community, I'll be sharing this as well on social media and distribute it via email. Thank you very much, Bridget. Very kind of you. And Fred, have a great day. And goodbye to all. Take care.